Alright, for the third time, let's try this again. Alright, the other two times, computer went down and then it suddenly told me to reconnect, and I have no idea what's going on, but let's try this again. If this doesn't work, well, we'll find out. First off, I'm going to be talking about these two books, Manga Sajaba and The Secret Teachings of a Warrior's Sage, Call. Now, if you don't know, you've probably already seen these, you've probably already heard about it, and by all means, you should pick these up. Reasons: because there's a good historical lesson going on in these books, more or less, than the actual training and what you should be doing in order to progress on that kind of level. They don't go into detail about that, and that's specifically one of the reasons for the book. They don't want it to go out, and as like they said in the book, they don't want to create monsters. And by that, I give you this. Alright, so in the first book, actually the second book made by Kostas, kudos to you for actually bringing this to Western civilization. First and foremost, this book basically teaches you, it doesn't teach you, but it more implies that people should meditate more often. Now, I don't know if you've known, but in Chicago, they're starting meditation. The world is starting to open up to a meditational place. And as somebody posted on Facebook one time, it said, a quote said, even if you're training wrong, you're still training. But the case is here is that people should meditate more often, and it's starting to happen. And that's great, because people would learn how to live under civilized notion instead of having to create a whole bunch of ruckus and affairs that they have no idea about. Now, in these books, I talk about, well, especially this one. This one has a lot of historical stuff going on, observations more or less, and a little bit here and there of what's inside this book, which Costa said might not even have all of the truth in there, and that's kind of good. This book talks about like Samson. It talks about Mozu and how his name is basically translated to Mr. Tattoo because he was branded as a criminal. They talk about Dynamo Jack's master and okay, I don't know word that. Dynamo Jack's master, Lao Shifu, and Lao Shifu's master, sort of say. And which are really, really good stories. So if you plan on just doing meditation and not worrying about the other stuff that people are desperately wanting out of these books, this would be a great pickup for historical lessons and for the great stories within it. I cannot emphasize that enough, the great stories within it. Let me give you a little preview inside this book. This book has basically more or less for Samson and Athena, Greek mythology stuff, because Costa is from Greece. They teach about the practices, and they teach you about the balance of meditation, how you should, and furthermore, basically if you meditate more than you do other things, then the only other thing that would happen is one part where you won't be able to do some other things. But that's besides the point. They talk about, there's another thing in here that I'm going to make a video about, let me read you a part of it. For instance, if a heart transplant patient receiving the donor's heart will often develop traits, likes and dislikes of the late donor. I have a video for that, but that's neither here nor there. I also talk about some other things in this book. It's kind of related to and kind of not. Chapters in here are mostly related to Whispers of the Past, Metal, Microcosm, Spheres, the Thunderbolt Path, which is probably the main part of this book. But all etc. is the Warrior Elites, where they talk about how battling and karate and all that other stuff have developed in the world. They show a little bit of practice and something that Costa is starting up. I don't necessarily know where this is starting up. And yeah, if you saw the glare, my computer would sleep on me because 5 minutes of not moving. They talk about whispers from the past. They talk about so many things in here that it's pretty good. And like I said, more or less, this is more about historical what our forefathers were trying to tell us before things kind of went haywire, and how the world has been developed, and how bad things got versus how things are now. They talk about how China. Oh, and another thing they talk about with Mozu, they talk about Bodhidharma, the Persian prince, and they talk about Chang'e and Fen, two big important factors of this training, I guess you could say. But nonetheless, don't take this video into training considerations, or this book into training considerations. This is more or less of a whole bunch of good stuff, even if you are not training for the purposes of what people are trying to imply in this book. Along with inside this book, gives you great things. They talk about life force, the beginnings, looking through the mirror, immortals. The immortals goes with the story of Lao Shifu. There's lessons to be learned. Like, there's one story in here where Dynamo Jack's his master went to him and his brother in the training system, and he asked him a question and they had to answer, and then one of them answered wrong and got smacked across the room. And Lao Shifu, he told him that he would remember this moment for the rest of his life. It's a very touching story, and I think people would like it. There's just so many good stories in here. They talk about the will of heaven, which is judo, which kind of goes to the point where people who are trying to dig deep and understand and learn this stuff, you can't swallow a pill to gain what Dynamo Jack has. It's impossible. There's no short steps, there's no cut throughs, there's no back alleys to get to where he's at. You have to, like they say, it's dedication and something else. I forgot the other one, but you'll find out if you read the book. In the Mangas of Java, oh yeah, that's where I was going with that. The will of heaven. The will of heaven is judo. It basically gives you. They're the ones that basically tell you if what you can have or if you have progressed further enough. Which most people should actually do meditation for health reasons. Health beneficial reasons, I should say, which is a very good thing, and the world is coming to that. Another thing they talk about nature, reality, and the breath of Terry or something like that, and observations and speculations. But there's another thing in here I would like to show you also. They talk about the charis. And well, I won't say specifically mine because I'm not sure. I have no way of knowing what mine is like, or what it is, but supposedly the older ones are made from meteorite. As you can see, it's a very beautiful design. They're mostly made of meteorites and nickel, I believe it is, and they talk about how they have magical powers and all that. Well, here in America, in the Western world, they would consider it magic, but nonetheless, it's actually a natural phenomenon, and people have not gained to that understanding. And more or less in this, they talk about they talk about partially the nature of yin and yang, which is very, very difficult to understand. I tried to make a video about that before, it didn't go right, and I think I took it down, and if I didn't, I might still take it down, because there's so many misunderstandings that people have by yin and yang that it's difficult to understand, in other words. There are so many ways of going about it. What else? What else? It'd be nice if I had, like, people asking questions about it. Oh yeah, that's another thing. If you really like this video and enjoy and want to know some more about the book, I'm willing to answer some questions about it. But let me give you a little insight to the book. One thing that an interesting thing. Let me find. It's more or less. It's basically more about. Oh, they give you spiritual insight too. This book basically has. It has a lot of great factors in it. I don't know what else to say. But like I said, I was going to look for something interesting to throw onto the screen for you, and I can't really find something at the moment. No, Shifu's a good story. Oh, one of the things about the book, about the power things that people are so obsessed about with these books, is that Dynamo Jack he is how can I word it? He's made promises, and these promises he had to keep for great reasons. One, he wasn't allowed to use his powers for evil, or he wasn't allowed to use his power for evil purposes. That's obvious. Whoever uses these for evil powers need not to be around. Number two, he was not allowed to make money off of it, because, you know, and if you read this book, you would understand why. And right now I have this one. You would understand why. I don't really want to say anything, because getting things out there, which means getting things on a reversed roll. But the third thing is that he's not allowed to demonstrate to anyone except to students, which is why you don't see or hear much about this. Lao Tzu, let me tell you is something great about this. I'm not sure if it was his master or it was Lao Shifu himself, but they had an ability so great that when he threw a leaf in the water, he could float across it. Yes, you might not believe me, and you'd have to read this book to understand. Like I said, if you really want to learn something, historical facts, these are the books to read from. They have great historical things that people don't tell you about through school or anything else. And I believe that it would be great for people to read this and participate in meditation, and not for the fact of gaining abilities like everybody who reads and wants all of this. Because, like I said with judo, it's not up to you who gets it, because there are things out there that know you better than you, in other words. But that's where free will comes in, and that's where a whole other discussion comes in, and that's where all this other stuff comes in. But I don't want to have that much time to talk about it. So break it all down, get these books, do some meditation, learn a little history, understand the world better, and realize that there's more amazing things out there than people think. See ya. Oh yeah, one more thing. If you really like this, subscribe and ask some questions, and I'll be more than welcome to make more videos about what you'd like to know, and especially maybe with that thing behind me. But anywho, see you and have a great one.